Just as that prayer had said, we have been given so much. We have so much to be thankful for. And that's what Thanksgiving is about. And as you notice today, Student Council has chosen for us to support Second Harvest, an organization that makes certain the people around us have food. And I am thrilled they chose Second Harvest because I love food. We wake up, we have food. At night, we have food. And in between the time when we wake up and the time we go to bed, we eat. And in between that in-between time, we eat again, and we call that a snack. So if we don't eat, our tummies, our bodies begin to ache. And if you're like me, you start to get a little bit grumpy too. So everyone, one thing we can know about food, every body in this room has to have food. And when we eat, we enjoy it. It's a gift. It tastes good. So I'm thankful for this food stuff. But I wonder, what is food? What is this stuff that we put in our bodies each day? We put a little bit of the earth in our bodies each day. And if we eat, it grows from the ground, and then we put it in our bodies. And if we do not do that, if we eat meat instead, we're eating something that came from the ground, that came from the earth. So every day, we enjoy this tasty stuff. We put a little bit of food, a little bit of the earth in us. We're connected by this. We enjoy it. And somehow, we ultimately depend on God to provide it. And today I want to share a story about this. I want to share a story about food. And it comes from the book of Exodus. It's about a guy named Moses who lived thousands and thousands of years ago. And during this time, his Hebrew people, were living like slaves or were living captive. And they had to work day and night. They didn't get a rest. They didn't get a chance to enjoy their food. So Moses leads them out of there. But the thing is, it's through a dangerous place. They have to go through the desert where there is no food. And so he leads them out. So he wants to take them to a safe place where they don't have to work all the time. He's leading them out through the desert, and they start to get a little bit hungry. And they start to get a little bit grumpy and complain. And they say, Moses, we'd rather be back in Egypt, where at least we had food. So Moses steps back and he says, okay. He goes and talks to God, and then God talks to Moses, and God says, tell them at twilight, you will eat meat, and in the morning you will be filled with bread. And that night, quail covers the ground, and they eat well. They go to bed with full stomachs and smiles on their faces, and when they wake up, they see all over the ground this little flaky white stuff. And it's like little seeds, and it tastes kind of like wafers and honey. And they ask Moses, what is this stuff? And he says it's called manna. It is the food that God has given us. But let me tell you something about this food. Listen up. Pay attention. Only eat as much as you need. Only take as much as you need. So they were all in the desert and they're in these tents. So those people with a lot of people in their tents, they would get a lot of jugs. It was 1 jug or like 1 gallon of manna for each person. So if you had a tent with a lot of people, you'd get a lot of jugs for your tent. If you had just a few people, you would just get a few jugs for your tent. And so the first night, everybody got just as much as they needed. It was great. Everybody had their manna. But then the second day came. And then a lot of people decided to get a whole bunch of manna. I guess they were kind of worried or something. But something terrible happened that night. The food starts to smell. The manna goes bad. It gets kind of disgusting, kind of gross. And then Moses finds out and he gets all mad. He says, "This is not fair. You've got to make sure everybody gets their manna." But eventually, the Hebrews who are following Moses get it right. They make sure that everyone has enough manna. So when I think about this story, I think we too are a little bit like the people following Moses. Sometimes we gather too much manna and don't worry about those who don't have. But instead of our food going rotten and disgusting or smelling bad, in a way we inside kind of go rotten or disgusting or kind of smell bad. We start to feel kind of empty or hollow inside or kind of weird because we can't really enjoy our food if there are people out there who don't have enough. And we try to forget, but we cannot. We have the news, we have the television, we see it in our community. We have student council pointing to us saying there are people in our community that don't have food. So if we have food and others do not, we can't really enjoy it. We can't really enjoy the stuff that connects us all together. That little bit of earth that goes in our stomachs every day. Because this is food that ultimately comes from God. And we deny that if we don't worry about others. But today, we have good news. If you look to the right, my right, if you look to my left, we have big barrels of food, big barrels of manna. It's overflowing. And I think that today we got it right. I think Moses might smile upon seeing this. I think God might too. Seeing that people don't have to suffer or be hungry or have their tummies hurt, but everybody can be full and satisfied and happy, with smiles on their faces because they just had a delicious meal, as God intends it to be. Amen.